Hey guys, welcome back to Unit 2, Part 3 of your notes. We're going to go over some of the different areas of the brain and what those different areas do and how they help us interact with the world around us and process information. So we're going to first go into the three specific areas. We have the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the forebrain, which all of these parts are part of the central nervous system. But to help you remember these three parts, the lowest part and in the back is the hindbrain. It's behind you. Midbrain, middle. And then forebrain is where your forehead is and on top. The next area of the brain that we're going to talk about is within the hindbrain. And this includes our brainstem, which is one of the oldest parts, and it's the central core of the brain. It begins where the spinal cord swells as it enters the skull, and its sole purpose is there for our survival functions, helping with breathing, helping with heart rate, reflexes to help us stay alive. So it's very, very important. The next thing is the pons, and that contains a lot of clusters or fibers. And I try to get people to remember, like, the fibers are like a bridge over a pond, pons, and it's involved with sleep and arousal. And it also connects the cerebellum and the brainstem. Our next area is the cerebellum, and we're going to go more into this in the next couple of slides as well. But the cerebellum is responsible for motor coordination. The two L's in cerebellum kind of look like legs. Motor coordination, balance, you need two legs to be balanced. But this area of the brain is also known as the little brain. It is at the rear of the brainstem, and it also helps with movement output. So whatever your brain's saying, move your arm, good, you're going to move it. The midbrain, again, located in between the hindbrain and the forebrain, has a lot of nerve fiber systems connected to the lower and higher portions of the brain, and this also relays information between the brain, eyes, and the ears, which is pretty cool. Substantia nigra is near the bottom of the midbrain, and if this area is damaged at all, or there's any deterioration of this area, you most likely have Parkinson's disease. You will see people have those quick movements, slight tremors, very rigid, and this area of the brain contains dopamine. The striatum is the central input station with the basal ganglia, and then the reticular formation are a nerve network in the brainstem, and this helps with controlling arousal, helps manipulate neurotransmitters, and it gets you to thinking like about your patterns, walking, sleeping. If you hear certain noise, how do you know whether to look or not? You guys have been trained well to move to a new class when a bell rings. But what if all of a sudden the bells aren't there? And a dog barks. Are you going to move at the same time if a dog barks versus a bell? Maybe. Some of you might. Our next area of the brain is the forebrain, and this is the largest part of it and the most forward part, the forebrain by your forehead. It is made up of your limbic system, which is a donut-shaped neural system, which does include the hippocampus and the amygdala, and it's located just below the cerebral hemispheres. This deals with emotions, your drives and your desires, and some of your more intense emotions. Your amygdala is an almond shape, or like 2 lima bean sized neural clusters that are also linked with emotion. And if you look at the word amygdala, it looks like Amy in the beginning, and you can think like Amy gets mad. Those are more of our emotional awareness and expressions. Hippocampus, this is to help, or used to help you form memories as well as recall memories. If the hippocampus is damaged at all, it's almost impossible to retain any new memories. Another important thing is that memories in the hippocampus, they kind of help choose where to store the memories and helps with retrieval, but doesn't actually do any of the storing of the specific memories. A way to help remember hippocampus, if you guys have ever heard of the saying, an elephant never forgets. A hippo and an elephant are best friends and they'll never forget one another. Which is pretty fun to think about. The basal ganglia is just above the thalamus, and that helps with coordination, voluntary movements, repeating certain activities. Ganglia is just a large cluster of neurons. If this area is damaged, you might have unwanted movement. It could be jerking or slight tremors. The hypothalamus, which is just below the thalamus, is a neural structure that directs several of our maintenance and well-being activities. Are eating, drinking, body temperature. It helps with the endocrine system. It helps control the pituitary gland and linked to emotion and rewards as well. These again are all parts of the forebrain. We're going to go into the cerebral cortex that has a little bit more information. And this again is like the whole top of it. Our brain, the cerebral cortex, is broken up into 4 different parts. The occipital lobe, and in the letter O, since it deals with vision, you could draw a smiley face with 2 eyes. Temporal lobe involves hearing, language processing, memory. If you're musically inclined, tempo. If you aren't so musically inclined, if you think tempura shrimp, when you bite into it, it's very crunchy. You can hear that crunch. And that's over by your ears. Frontal lobe, and then parietal lobe. Frontal lobe helps with intelligence, our personality, voluntary muscles. It's also one of the slower developing lobes. Girls, you stop developing your frontal lobe at 22, guys at 26. This is why ladies tend to date older men, because they're more mature, sort of. They're probably on the same maturity level as the female, even though they're older, solely because ladies' frontal lobes finish developing first. So again, occipital lobe, vision, temporal lobes, hearing, language processing, frontal lobe, intelligence, personality. Phineas Gage, we're going to watch a quick video on him. He had a metal rod through his head. He lived for a while. But since it did go through his frontal lobe, some of the things that the frontal lobe controls didn't work how it should, like in a normal human. And then our parietal lobe helps with spatial location, attention, motor control, and input for touch and body position as well. And a little cool fact, Albert Einstein, his parietal lobe was 15% larger than any other normal human, which is kind of cool. Again, here is a breakdown of where some of the things are, and again, a basic little diagram of what they do as well. Within the cerebral cortex, we have the somatosensory motor cortex and the association cortex. The somatosensory cortex is within the parietal lobe towards the front. And it deals with body sensations. If you look at that last part of the word, sensory, your sensations, senses. Another part is the motor cortex, and that's in the frontal lobe, but towards the rear of the frontal lobe. Again, it deals with voluntary movements, point-to-point mapping, relationship of where your body is in relation to what's being triggered on your cerebral cortex. We then have association areas, and these are areas of the cerebral cortex that are not quite involved in primary motor or sensory functions, but they help with like our learning, remembering, thinking, speaking, problem solving, language, which these could all be damaged. Our brains are such incredible things, but if we injure them, we can unlearn so much that we've already learned. This is why with sports, these concussion testings are super important. Here's a little map of the brain. Kind of gives a little visual of what's going on. Split brain. We have two hemispheres in our brain, and in between are little bundles of axons that connect them, and that's called the corpus callosum. And if you think about it, two hemisphere, corpus callosum is two words to keep them together. Little helpful trick. And then again, the hemispheres. We have the left hemisphere that has Broca's area. Boca in Spanish is mouth. Braca is production of speech. You use speech with your mouth. Wernicke's area deals with comprehension. And then our right side is our spatial perception, visuals, recall, emotion, listening to songs, and having a sense of humor. These are all of our notes for today. I hope you guys have a phenomenal rest of your day, and hope you guys enjoyed.